Hi, this is Ron Pepper for Photofocus, and I'm going to introduce you to the new Photomatix Essentials plugin, which is for Photoshop Elements. So I have Photoshop Elements open here. I need to first go to the Expert mode, and under the File menu and Automation Tools, we find Photomatix Essentials. If you've used Photomatix Essentials before, you'll now recognize a familiar dialog where you can choose to load your bracketed photos. Now, if you're really new to HDR and you have not taken bracketed photos before, there's some helpful links here on the left. I'm going to click Browse and choose my 5 bracketed source images. At this point, I see the thumbnails of the images in preview, and I can uncheck them if I don't want to include all of them, but in this case I do. And I'm going to hit Next. So when you're taking bracketed photos, there's a few challenges, and 2 of them are that they need to be aligned many times, and also there may be some ghosting in there. Those are pretty different things. In the case of alignment, that's just from movement of the camera. So in this case, I was actually shooting straight upward, and I was hand holding the camera, so there is some movement in there. There's no tripod. Separately, there's also ghosting in there, and that's movement that wasn't from the camera. That's the moving objects in the scene. And in this case, the moving objects is basically that Italian flag looking balloon and those streamers that are holding it up. So there's a lot of movement in the scene. So I do need the deghosting. And in this case, I will choose strong deghosting. So after a few seconds, the plugin will load the images and give us a preview image. And now we can choose our settings for tone mapping. I don't want to talk too much about tone mapping because there is such a big subject and there's so many opinions and you can do so many things with it. So I'm going to go ahead and take something really close to what I got in the default here. Find something that's kind of generally good and go ahead and click Next again. I'm asked here if I want to reduce noise on the source images, but I've already done that when I converted the raw files to JPEGs, so I'm not going to do that again, and that'll save us some time. Now the plugin is going through and doing the real work. So while it's doing that, I want to highly encourage anyone watching, if you haven't already, to download and try Photomatix Essentials, either the plugin edition or even the standalone version. It's free to try, and there's a link to the download page just below this video. And also more about taking the photos. I often tell people that you should first focus on taking really good source images for HDR, because once you have images that cover the full dynamic range, the processing just gets to be really easy. Okay, the next window we see is called Step 3, Finish and Save, and it gives us a chance to add some sharpening and contrast. So some really basic post-processing items. Now you can do that here. We can add some contrast, but I'm going to do that in Photoshop next, so I'll leave these set to none right now. So now the image is open in Photoshop Elements, and I'm sure you agree that it needs some post-processing, and we can do that in Photoshop, but that's a whole different tutorial. So I will leave you with that and just tell you that you can look for more about HDR and more about panoramic photography in future posts on Photofocus. And you can also find me on Twitter at Ron Pepper.